Welcome back to the podcast, you guys. I'm one of your hosts, Jenna.
And I am your other host, Holly.
And today we're talking about everything that you need to know about marketing for your author career and for your incoming and outgoing books.
And I have quite a few notes, so hopefully we'll be able to get at a lot of things, as much of them as we can in this little session.
Yeah, definitely. And I think we have, some unique experience with this as well. You have the staging collection and you also work in marketing. I work in marketing as well.
Yeah.
So, if you're going to go to anybody,
we are coming at it from a pretty good direction, just because most authors now are forced to be their own marketers, but we also work in that in our day job, so it's all marketing all the time here.
yeah. You can't escape it. Like, as an author, whether you're going the traditional or self-publishing path, it's at this point just incredibly necessary, and a lot of people hate that. But hopefully after this video, this podcast, you'll hate it a little bit less. That's our goal.
Yeah, I hope so, because even with me, it was kind of frustrating to start off being like, oh, I have to do all of this, even as someone who likes marketing. So I know that for someone who does not like marketing and really just wants to hunker down and write, my partner is like that. I know it's tough, but you can find really fun elements of it. And I think that Jenna and I have both been able to make it fun for ourselves. So maybe we'll rub off on you.
That's what we can hope for. And I think that's like the main tip I would give anybody who has to, start doing marketing and when they're not comfortable with it, is find one thing you do enjoy, because there's so many elements of marketing. Everybody can find one thing that they enjoy about it or one thing that they like to do, and that can be, the place that you start and you build from that, or you stay in your comfort bubble, whatever it may be. But there's got to be something that you do enjoy about marketing. Like, it's such a big genre.
Absolutely. That's the thing. I think that's a good place to start too, is that there's sort of this idea of what marketing is, and there's a lot associated with it. And for me, I remember when I first started merging more into that world professionally, because I didn't study for it. It just sort of happened. There was this part of me that was like, oh, marketing's kind of like, icky advertising, selling to people. But if you can get yourself out of that mindset and think of something more more organic, especially with the internet, like the online world, marketing can really be what you make of it. And you should just think the base is promoting yourself, and don't think like selling. Obviously there's a selling element, but if you're thinking about promoting and putting yourself out there, you're already doing that with your creative works. You are already putting yourself out there. So it's just in a way that is going to do that like a little bit more, with a bit more strategy. And there's different phases of that through the publishing process.
Yeah, and I think too, a lot of people feel so gross and nasty about marketing because they feel like it's the same thing as sales.
Yeah.
But, good sales and good marketing, they're two different things. But then marketing specifically, it's not you trying to like force somebody to buy your
Mm-hmm.
book. It's more so you're trying to allow people who would love your book to find it for themselves.
Yeah.
And so really you're doing them a favor, because it's like they're going to love your book because you're trying to find your ideal audience. You're trying to find people who are going like baked in to love what you're writing. And so like imagine if you had never found your favorite book because it was not marketed like at all. You never heard about it. Like, you would be sad. So it feels better coming from that angle of like, oh, I'm helping the ideal reader find their new favorite book, versus just sending out the link, mass, sending your link in every form and every tweet and everything you can find, and being like, everybody buy it. Like, that's when it gets gross and nasty. So don't do that. More so try to find your perfect person and your perfect reader. And I feel like it makes everyone feel better, and it makes you have a better reputation overall, I think, as well.
Exactly. That's it. And I think a sort of good word to use is discovery. Like you're not selling, you're assisting with discovery. So you can even make like I might be jumping into it a bit here, but you can even make like an ideal reader profile. Like, who is the person you're thinking of? Who are you writing for? And how do you find those people? Because there are billions of people in the world, and they're not always just going to stumble across your stuff. And there was a little more of that a long time ago, but now the world is saturated. So you really don't have any other option.
Yeah, no, I think that's one of the first and most important things you have to do with marketing is figuring out who are you trying to even reach in the first place,
Hmm.
because there is a readership for everything, there is a customer for everything, but there, you have to understand too, like, yes, you might like something, you might love the book that you wrote, but it doesn't mean every single person in the world is your ideal reader. So it might
Hmm.
be only like one other person, it might be thousands of people, whatever it may be. You just have to reach that one person, and as long as you're writing for yourself and that person, then I feel like, one, that helps you with writing because you're not trying to make it a universal beloved thing, you're just trying to write for yourself and maybe an ideal reader who's very similar to you.
Hmm.
And that helps as as well with the writing process, because otherwise, if you're trying to cater to everybody, you kind of lose the spark. I know I did that with my novel Spaceborne. I tried to make it so accessible for everybody, and everybody could get into it, and sure, a lot of people liked it, but it's also like I lost the spark of what I was writing in the first place. So from the
Hmm.
writing point all the way through to the marketing publishing point, knowing who you're writing for is so crucial, so you remember why you're doing anything that you're doing.
Yeah, it is really easy to get lost in the weeds, especially with a lot of the specifics that are coming out. And you can feel sort of overwhelmed that, like, okay, well, I have to cover this, I have to cover this and this, and like you don't have to. And at the same time, like, I know there are a lot of people who say there are too many writers right now. There's too many books coming out, but I don't think so at all. Like, with the niche markets out there and with the amount of people in the world, like, I really believe that there's an audience for every single writer, and you just have to find them.
Yeah, I agree too, and I think it is kind of hard being in the current world where we have so much access to information, so anybody can become a
Yeah.
writer. And so it
Yeah.
feels like there's more writers than ever before, which is true, but there's also been more readers than ever before because of
Mhm.
accessibility. And we do have the balancing act of that being the downside of book banning and things like that, but
Yeah.
there's an ideal readership for everything, there's an ideal fan for everything. And on top of that as well, if you're actually genuinely a good writer who, and this is the importance of marketing, knows who your ideal reader is, can find where they're located, market to them so that they can find their new favorite book, and you're writing genuinely a good story for that audience, and you haven't gotten lost in the weeds or lost in the sauce while writing the book, then like you're already
Mhm.
ahead of so many other people who are trying to write to market, only the market's like 3 years old, or trying to
Yeah.
write for a magical person that doesn't exist, or trying to write for everybody in the whole world. Like, no one's catered to that. That's
Yeah.
too many people to please.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I have definitely been a people pleaser, so I understand the urge.
Yes.
uh, but you gotta pull back. You gotta go, no, this is what I'm passionate about, and there are gonna be other people who are passionate about it. Like, I guarantee you, the weirdest stuff out there has a passionate fan base. Like,
Yeah.
I know someone, not very not directly, and uh, they do great writing, but one of their niches happens to be like dinosaur erotica, and there's a base for that. So, I believe me, there's someone for everything.
Yeah, I was gonna say the same thing with me being currently obsessed with Baldur's Gate 3. There's people who like avidly fuck the Mind Flayer,
Hmm.
and a bear.
Hmm.
So tentacles
Yeah.
and a literal bear. So
Yeah.
like
Like,
if there's an audience for that, there's an audience for whatever the hell you are writing, I guarantee
yeah, get as weird as you want.
you. Yes.
Your clan is out there.
Or as normal as you want. If you're like, oh, this is too vanilla, too
Exactly.
tame, like, people only want spicy books. Like, no, there's
Yeah.
entire groups dedicated to non-spicy books. So
Yes.
I would just be
That is
careful. Oh.
I was just gonna say that's a really good point to make, but I'll let you finish your thought and then say
Oh,
my thing.
uh, I would. This is a tangent, but I would just be careful with any of those groups that are like, oh, we only like non-spicy books. If they say like, oh, we only like clean books,
Mm,
it, why why do we have to make things clean versus dirty? I would avoid that terminology, obviously, for a lot of different reasons, including all of the book banning that's going on. But then on top of just like, let's not use that terminology if you are going to go in those groups. But that's a
yeah.
completely different side tangent.
So for me, I'm ace. And so I just like literally can't write spice. And I remember when that first my brain doesn't I have worked for like an adult website as an administrator. Like I'm steeped in this world. I'm very comfortable with it, but my imagination doesn't matter how much of it I've, been around, it will not go there. My brain just doesn't think that way. So I was like, when I saw the spice coming out, I'm like, oh no, it has to be spicy. But no, it's okay. It's okay. I write in a fade to black type way, and no one has had a problem with it. So if you're not a spicy writer, it's okay.
Yeah, I think too, like trying to, this is a perfect example of trying to like cater to the masses or catering to what you think is on trend or in market. But if you're not comfortable writing spice, if you're not comfortable writing a specific genre, a specific type of character, but you think it's like quote unquote in, that's
Yeah,
the worst thing you can do for yourself because it's going to be a freaking
absolutely.
drag.
Yeah.
And then on top of that, readers are going to be able to tell. Like
Yeah.
one of my least favorite things, and we could do a whole podcast on romance, writing and
Oh, for
things like
sure.
that. But one of my least
Mm-hmm.
favorite things is someone who's never been in a relationship, has never had sex, like nothing like that, writing a spicy like romance because you can just
Yeah.
tell. And like everybody
Yeah.
has their escapism and their fantasies, so like of course, but then as a reader who obviously has those experiences, like you can really really tell. And if you're just trying to write that way because it's not escapism, but it's because you think that it's gonna sell, like readers can tell, and then you're just gonna have negative reviews, and that's not fun for
But
anybody.
yeah, like when you see someone doing that, it's just sort of, and I saw a lot of it in the fan fiction world because I mean I was in there when I was a teenager, and there were many, many, many virgins in many ways, many, many senses of the word, and it was sort of like, yeah, I could sort of see where you're coming from, and that's a little bit fun, but it's not gonna, there's no staying power with this because it's completely unrealistic.
Yeah, well, I mean, fan fiction is kind of a different thing, where it's
True,
for escapism, and so like I'm
true,
more
true.
acceptable of things that don't make sense, or like if you can tell that like they have no experience in the thing that they're writing about, because like they say write what you know, but if you're writing
Hmm.
about dragons, you don't know dragons. So
That
same
is
thing with
true.
like if you're writing about sex, like you don't have to necessarily have sex to write about sex, but
Hmm.
a lot of the times readers can just tell. In fan fiction it's definitely escapism, and in some published novels it's also escapism, so like fine with that. But if you're only writing
Hmm.
it because you think that's what's going to sell,
Yeah.
that's when readers can really really tell, and it becomes like, oh, you only did this for like the trend, not because you're interested in this, not because you have like experience to really know what you're writing, and
Mm,
then it
mhm.
just becomes like overall uncomfy.
True. Yeah. Yeah. I've definitely thought, oh, maybe I could put something in there. Like, no, if I write it, it's gonna sound awful. It's just not gonna be it. Can write everything leading up to it, but it's not for me. So
Yeah,
as an author, you want to feel free and creative, but you should also know what is not comfy and what is not for you.
yeah. I think I would compare it to like walking out of the movie theater. So like if you're reading a book or
Mm.
if you're writing a book and like, oh, this is getting to a point that it's something I'm uncomfortable with writing or something that I don't want to write, just like exit the theater. Like you don't have to finish watching the
Hmm.
movie, you don't have to finish
Hmm.
writing that scene. You can do a faded black. Like literally last night we were watching the movie Joyride, which I think is made by the
Hmm.
same people who did Crazy Rich Asians, and there's like
Okay.
some raunchy there's a raunchy scene in there where it's flipping back and forth between all four friends like having sex, and my
Oh,
sibling is ace, so my sibling like
okay.
left the room. They were like, I'm leaving the movie theater, and I was like, respect that, do what's comfortable for you, but forcing yourself to stay in the movie theater because you think that that's what's on trend, it makes everyone else
Hmm.
uncomfortable because they can see how stiff and like
Yeah, it's
uncomfortable
like,
you are.
oh, yeah, no, I relate. So moving back to our marketing, I think now like, every time we talk, it's like, oh, here's more ideas for more podcasts. I think we should definitely do like maybe a Valentine's episode with a whole like romance spice theme,
Ooh.
especially like with one being ace and one not. It could be very interesting.
I know, someone who
But
writes spice and someone who's ace. Perfect.
exactly, exactly. We cover everything. But we were sort of talking about understanding your target audience, which I think, and genre, like the importance of genre and a target audience, and knowing who you are and who you're writing for. That's a really good place to start from, even like when you're writing and when you're marketing, because you want to know who you're reaching out to. You need to know that.
Yeah, I definitely agree. There's, you can write for yourself as much as you want, but if you're planning for the book to come out, the ideal reader isn't going to be exactly who you are. There's definitely going to be parallels, but
Yeah.
you have to know who you're writing and who you're marketing for, because you're like, oh, I hate marketing, I don't use social media. Well, let's say all of the people who would love your book are all on TikTok. Well, how
Yeah.
are they going to find out about your perfect book?
Exactly. You're gonna have to get in there.
Yeah. And a lot of people, they hate showing their face online too, which, like, I understand.
Hmm.
But you can do faceless stuff online all the time too. So
Yep.
you can be still having a presence, but there's a way to do trends and to do other things where you don't have to show your face, or
Hmm.
show too much of your life and things like that. But of course, the more you show your face, the more you show your life, then more people can get to know you on a personal level, so that does help as well. So if you're
Yeah.
inclined to it, I would do it. But again, if it's not comfortable or not, feeling genuine to who you are, then you don't have to do it. And that goes for marketing in general. You really don't have to do it, but we would encourage you to do it.
Yes, it would be beneficial to you.
Yes.
But yeah, with not showing your face, the thing is, you can always start that way, and you can change your mind. So no matter how you start, like although I mean, if you start showing your face and then you stop, people might be a little bit like, what's going on? But if you feel uncomfortable from the get go, just start without showing your face. Like, I know that it's a little bit of a controversial topic, but you can do like AI based videos and images, stuff like that, especially on TikTok. Like, a lot of people are using it. I've seen and there's Canva. You can even, like, you can go on Fiverr and commission someone to do one of those little like little cartoons, and you can get like 5 different poses or something, so that while you're talking they can change it up a little bit. So there's a lot of ways to, and I mean, I would definitely encourage commissioning an artist over using the AI approach, but there are multiple options out there to make your stuff look interesting and communicate with your audience without showing your face, for sure.
Yeah, I feel like too, there's a lot of, trends online, even with people who show their face on TikTok. They use like Pinterest photos or aesthetic
Hmm.
boards and other things like that.
Hmm.
So you don't have to always like take a picture of you with your book or with your manuscript or in front of a computer.
Yep.
Like, you can also do things that are, free online, like Pinterest, or there's also like
Hmm.
Pic Crew. A lot of authors use
Yeah.
Pic Crew. And eventually, you will have to take an author photo.
Hmm. Yeah,
But,
like you're gonna have to do that.
yeah, at one point or another, or again, you commission an artist and hopefully they'll let you get away with just having art on the back for your photo, which some people
Yeah,
I
but a
think have
lot.
done.
Yeah.
They won't do it.
Well, I mean, in the Stygian collection, we had a couple authors who were not like fully comfortable. One had actually passed away, and there was just sort of a photo of
Oh,
him like from behind. And then there's one that uses like a cartoon. And then we had an author who wanted to use like a heavily sort of Photoshop thing, just because she has a certain vibe online. So it depends on who's publishing you, right? Like, I'm open to that. Some people aren't. Like, a lot of, if you are going full trad publishing, like, they're going to want just like a straight up classic headshot from you. I can
yeah.
promise you that. But I think the key sort of term, if you are looking for imagery to use in your marketing that is not you, just keep royalty free in mind. So don't go accidentally or purposefully stealing images or art. Just search royalty free and
Yeah.
stay in that realm. And you can find sounds in that area too. Like, you can find music and sounds and sound effects and video. Like, I use a video editing software called Filmora by Wondershare, and one of the reasons I love it is because it comes built in with like a massive library of stuff, and I've used it to make trailers just with royalty free footage and music, and I put sound effects in my haunted Montreal videos and stuff like that. So you can find a wealth of stuff, and even like heavy filters to not show you completely. There's a million options out there these days. Like it's moving very quickly. Like every time I see something, I'm always seeing new announcements for stuff that you can add into your video. So like it's endless.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the reasons a lot of people like to use TikTok is because you can add a filter to your face so that, you know, you don't have
Hmm.
to wear makeup, and then boom, you have makeup on your face already. And
Yeah.
then for people who don't like the sound of their own voice, there's also all the voice effects. So, and
Yep.
like those are trendy too. So you don't have to listen to your own voice if you don't want to, but it will still be like
Hmm.
your words, it'll still be genuine to you, but you're just like altered a little bit to make yourself comfortable.
Yeah. I and I think going by my points, we've sort of naturally merged into my creating a strong author brand segment that I had written down about sort of building your personal brand as an author, because you do want to think about how you're going to come across. So like you've identified your audience, but now what are you going to put forward to them? Right? Like, and how are you going to be consistent, and where are you going to put that image out there? That's your next consideration.
Yeah, and I think that's, you know, finding where your ideal audience is. So after you have that ideal reader in your mind, you have to figure out where they're located. This might be some trial and error, but then once you
Yeah.
start, you know, picking up steam and things like that, you'll find naturally where your people are, you know, sticking with people who understand you, making friends, just being a genuine part of the community first and foremost before you ever try to sell anything online, I think is crucial.
Hmm.
And then you'll have a natural, you know, support system, reader base, people who wouldn't normally probably pick up your book, but like you as a person because they've gotten to know
Yeah.
you. That I feel like is the first big step. And then after that is when people who don't know you start finding you because they like the book that you're writing or that you're publishing.
Hmm.
And then they want to read it, they want to beta, they want to support you because they like the idea of the book, they like the snippets you've shared, they want to go buy it because they've been waiting for a while, you know, for the book to come out. And now they're like, oh my God, I know about it, I'm going to go pick it up. And so it's like the natural train and progression of marketing your book in a very natural and authentic way versus you write the book, you're not online for the entire thing, you publish it, and then you're like, oh shit, I'm not getting any sales. Send my link out everywhere. Buy it, buy.
Yeah,
That's
no,
what no one likes.
no. Hmm. Yeah, that is very important to talk about that progression, because for you and I, we started our social media presence, we started our YouTube channels before really putting a work out there. So it's like you're building a foundation. You're building a foundation, you're showing this is what I'm all about, then gradually getting in there that like, okay, this is what I'm working on. Let's maybe work on this together, because people really like to feel that they're a part of the process. And that's something really cool that we can do now, because authors couldn't always do that before. I mean, whether they wanted to or not, but because I know a lot of authors don't want people in on the process. But if you're comfortable with that, people do love it, and they love seeing that whole process. And oh, I was, I followed them before they even had the idea for this story, and now it's coming out, and I get to see the outlining. And I mean, if you're in NaNoWriMo, I get to sprint with them all through NaNoWriMo and see how they come up with things, and the draft is finished, and then I get to buy it. And it's why things like crowdfunding are so popular, because people really want to feel like they're a part of something, and it makes it extra special. So by building that foundation first, you bring people along on your journey. And I mean, there's marketing terminology of the journey, the funnel, how things get from one end to the other. There's a whole process, and being able to take people along with you on that is really valuable.
Yeah, I feel like the way you can easily think about it is that every book you write and share online, you have your own hero's journey. And the people who are
Yeah.
following you, they love stories. They love those sorts of arcs. They're used to it. It's what makes them, you know, feel comfortable, and it's what inspires and motivates them. So it's like they're following you along your journey, watching you be the hero in the hero's arc and your ups and your downs, and then finally seeing, you know, your happily ever after at the end where your book is out. But the thing is your story's not over yet because you have another book and another book and another book.
Hmm.
So they keep are watching you change and grow over the course of, you know, your series, which is your life of you publishing books online. And I mean, you don't know how far you're going, you know, in publishing. You could become a, you know, huge New York Times bestseller with multiple big series, or you could be a small, you know, niche author who doesn't blow up until like 50 years after they're dead. Who knows? You know, there's so many paths we
Hmm.
can take. But with the internet, we have access to an archive of watching these people have their journeys and grow online, and it motivates us as writers to be like, oh my god, this person did it, so of course I can do it. Or
Yeah.
watching somebody write motivates us to write. And if you're a reader, it's like, oh, I get the behind the scenes and the exclusive details about this book that I'm going to love before it was ever even a thing. And
Mm-hmm.
so, readers and writers and people who are, do both, but people who do both the reading and the writing, and who bridge that gap of reader and writer together, they're extra motivated because they're like, oh, I get the behind the scenes and I get the motivation for my own book at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
So you literally get to like chronicle your journey to writing and publishing a book online. And that is something that people find so interesting because we've never before in the history of humankind, since we had written word, been able to actually see that on an intimate, deep level before.
Yeah, and I remember before, I'm gonna date myself, but before the internet, um, before internet era, I remember reading stuff, and there would always be that part of me that wanted to know more about the author, and you would have, depending on when they were writing, you would have like a historical book that they showed up in, or or if they were active, you would sort of see them on TV, but they were always kind of mysterious. And while that can be good in a way, people want to know. And it's really exciting to be able to share that, especially like you said, to other writers, because I mean, I'm someone who loves to inspire other people. I think we both are. That's why we're doing this. So it gives such a great opportunity to inspire other people. And that's another thing that you can think of while you're doing your marketing, that you aren't just discovering readers, you're discovering writers and helping them to push forward and create their own works.
Yeah, I think too, like, you're inspiring yourself because people are watching you, people are following along with your journey. You're already getting validation from what people are saying about your book because they're excited to read it. That it pushes you to hit your deadlines. It pushes you to be more
Mm-hmm.
ambitious. It pushes you to have the book out when you said it was going to be out because people are waiting for you to have the book out so that they can have it in their hands. And so it's good for you in all of those ways. But then also think about when you're like 50, 60 years old and you have a journey from when you were like 16 to like 25 on the
Mm-hmm.
internet where, yeah, you've made mistakes. Yeah, you've made, not the best choices. You've failed, you've won, but you can see your own hero's journey of your entire life chronicled on the internet through small posts or through vlogs or through pictures and Instagram, all of these different things. And so you get to share that with like your kids, your nieces, nephews. Like, here's my whole journey that you get to watch back later on in your life. And I think too, one of the things that at least I've noticed about my content is that when I'm doing vlogs, I can see natural progressions of like, oh, this is that moment that something bad happened and I stopped filming for a week.
Mm-hmm.
This is something when something cool happened and I filmed like every single day of the week, and I can see and put together, oh, when this bad thing happened, I didn't write for a month. And then
Yeah.
I can put together, oh, that's why I do what I do. Like, I shouldn't feel bad about not writing because I had this bad thing happen before, and now I can see the progression of me doing that every single time. And you get to learn more about yourself through things like that. Or, oh, this is
Mm-hmm.
when that great thing happened and I wrote so much. And when I'm living the high life, I write way more. Or it's like, oh, actually, I realized the more that I consume online, the less that I write. And you can literally look at why you do what you do to figure out, oh, I can change that, and now I can write more. I can do things that make me happier. I can avoid the things that make me unhappy. And you can grow as a person on top of growing as a writer. And up until the age of the internet, we did not have that ability to be able to literally look at a chronicle of our creative journey and be able to look at it from a bird's eye view and
Mm-hmm.
alter our course.
Yeah, and it's very um oh, just went out of my head. I was like, I had this thought and then it just went you can
It's
tell I'm
gone.
tired. What was I gonna say about chronicling it? And oh yeah, okay. And it is very easy to just be charging ahead like as someone who's goal oriented, you know, you've got that goal, you've got that carrot in front of you, and you're sort of just pushing and pushing and pushing, and you don't necessarily remember all the little steps that got you there. So it's really rewarding, because sometimes I'm not someone who likes to watch my YouTube videos back, and I don't know anyone who does, but sometimes if I'm sort of planning a new series, like especially with NaNoWriMo, because this will be my third year doing it, like I have to come out with Preptober and NaNoWriMo stuff, and I want it to be a bit different every year. So I'll go back and I'll sort of skim through what I did last year, just to see, like, okay, well, what's something I can either expand on or make different? What haven't I talked about yet? Because I don't want to just do the same series on repeat every year. And I'll go back and I'll see all these little things that happened, and I'll, you know, see my cat who passed away, and I'll see these little like discussions and stuff, and it's like, oh, that is actually like kind of nice to watch back. I can see this little window into this life that I used to have and how I got to where I am, because you forget about a lot of those little week to week things. So there's this element of online, you know, putting yourself forward, online marketing, that is very, very human and very touching and unique.
Yeah, I agree. Most people don't like watching their stuff back, but then when you actually do, you're looking at, you know, an old place where you used to live, or you're looking at, oh, that's a specific
Hmm.
time in my life when XYZ happened, and you know, you can remember it more because you're physically seeing basically like a memory that only would exist in your head if you hadn't filmed it. And so, you know,
Hmm.
it's those tiny life moments, it's the big life moments you can go back and, you know, experience if you're specifically doing vlogging. But even if you're like posting pictures on Instagram, you're like, oh, that's when I worked at this place. This is when I lived at this
Yeah.
place. Like, you know, you remember where you were taking that photo, and it unlocks, you know, like these little pieces of your own history. But I feel like, too, as we get older, we're going to become more comfortable looking back at all of those old,
Hmm.
you know,
Hmm.
content a little bit more. Because, you know, like when you're a teenager, you don't want to look at your baby photos. You don't want your mom to show your baby photos
Yeah.
to like your new boyfriend, you know? But then, like,
Yeah.
if you're like, you know, you're older and you know you're married, you have your own kids, then you're like all looking at your baby photos, and then you want to go share your kids' baby photos with their new boyfriend, and not remembering what it
Hmm.
was like to be a teenager. And so this it's going to be the same thing with content. You know, the internet's still so new that we haven't really seen people who've been, you know, recording things and posting online for so long that now they're up higher in age, and that content's like
Hmm.
20 plus years old. Like we didn't have the internet that we have now 20 years ago, but wait,
Hmm.
20 years from now and that's going to be an experience so many people have.
Well, and also because you had mentioned before about whether you're, you know, going to be a best-selling author, or you're going to be someone who's appreciated like so many artists are after your time. Imagine that you're putting all this stuff out here, and your notoriety comes much later, like whether you're still here or not. All of that's going to be there, and people are going to be able to look back at it and go, oh, that's so cool to see this. I didn't know about this person. I didn't like, you're building your legacy.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, even thinking of like Brandon Sanderson, who's huge, but then he
Mm.
has like all these courses and things like that, and all these free things on his website. Like, people are so dedicated to him, and he has so much content that people can just dive into what he's
Yeah.
done over the course of many, many years. And what it does is solidifies him as a real person who does incredible work to this person, and they're like, oh my god, I love his work. I feel like I get to know him more as a person and a human being, and now I've consumed as much content of them as feasibly possible, and now they have a new book coming out. Oh my god, I have to buy every edition of that book because it's all new content to me. Like, it's like binging
Yeah.
like your favorite TV show that had like 8
Hmm.
seasons, and then like it's on hiatus, and then all of a sudden the next season's coming out after 3 years. You're like, oh
Hmm.
my god, like I have to watch it right away. And so it, you know, it builds, you know, your connection with people to make you feel like a real person and not just someone behind a screen or someone behind the pages of a book. But then also on top of that, it's like this is how you build people who aren't just readers but just like genuine fans of your work,
Hmm.
who will follow you from one book series to another book series to another book series, and who don't just read one book from you and go, okay, that's it, I'm done.
Because that is important. You are going to evolve as an author, and also you might not always explore the same genres. This is something I was actually talking about in an interview with one of the Stygian authors today, Hananya, and she was trying to determine what her genre was going to be, because she's dabbled with a lot of things, and she's like, I don't know what my first book should be, because like we were both saying, like you do get a little bit locked in, right? When you if you put something out and it's successful and it's, a historical romance, you're going to bring in readers who want more of that, and you could get into a place where that's all you're, quote unquote allowed to write. But if you have that appreciative, like true fan base who are going to like whatever you put out, it allows you to explore a little more. So you can go, okay, I'm going to start with YA sort of fantasy, and then I'm going to evolve into like high level obscure, bigger world building, or maybe I'm going to dabble in sci-fi, and people are just going to like your talent and what you are putting out, and they're not going to pigeonhole you.
Yeah, I mean, look at Sarah J. Maas. She can basically write whatever the hell she wants, and people
Yeah,
will absolutely devour it. And
like that's the goal.
yeah. Well, I mean, in my personal opinion, she's not the best writer,
Hmm.
of
I
actual like
agree.
craft level stuff, but she's
Yeah.
able to share enough about herself and have to know what readers want enough to make, like an obsessive fan base. She's more of an
Hmm.
example of like writing what a large majority of people want versus like a
Yeah.
specific niche of people, but even she still has like a niche of really specific, more like female catered
Yeah.
younger audience who loves like romance novels. So she's still
Hmm.
pigeonholed into wanting to write, usually something in fantasy, usually with romance, or always with romance, I believe. Um,
Hmm.
so she's in that section, but she could write a historical fiction, she could write a sci-fi, she could write fantasy, and as long as she
Yeah.
has the romance element, people are going to follow her with whatever she does, regardless of the fact that her craft isn't as developed as a lot of other authors who've spent a lot more time and effort on their craft level stuff, because she knows genuine storytelling. Like I know there was a
Yeah.
tweet recently that blew up about how I'm sorry if you can hear background noise. Um,
I hear a little, but not too bad.
okay. Um, but I'm pretty sure everyone's like cooing at my dog. I think that's what that is.
Understandable. Completely understandable.
Yeah. But I'm pretty sure there was a tweet that blew up recently where someone was saying they were an agent and they were saying like most people who are agents, they want people who could tell a good story, not necessarily people who are good at writing. And so they want
Mm,
storytellers who they can just edit to
yeah.
be publishable. But,
Yeah.
obviously, as writers who care about our craft, we kind of want to have both, where we're genuinely good
Yes.
storytellers, but then we've also worked on our craft. And unfortunately, traditional publishing more so caters to people who just are good storytellers, and they just pay an editor to make their stuff legible. But the ideal would be you'd have at least an even balanced amount of both. But storytelling, branding of a person, all these things are interconnected, because if you're a good storyteller, even if you don't have good craft, you'll most likely get published over someone who has good craft but isn't a good storyteller, because it's easier to edit
Hmm.
craft than it is to edit the actual whole story itself.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you can story tell any genre and people will follow you because you have the same style. But if you're only trained in like the sci-fi craft, you can't
Hmm.
go to a different genre because you're not trained in, you haven't learned that specific genre yet, and people aren't going to follow you because your entire element and your writing is going to change based off of the genre you're on. So it's a toss up with that one.
And that's kind of an interesting thing, actually, because over the years, traditional publishing has always been kind of the paramount thing, right? But now we're getting into this era where you might find better crafted stories, and this is by no means a blanket statement, but you might find better crafted stories in the indie world, because the trad world, has become so focused on sales specifically, that they do want to find something that they can just go, oh, here's a viral moment, and will, work it into something that is readable. But like, this person went viral, so let's just like push them hard. And there was, I can't remember the person's name, but there was someone who was like a TikTok sensation. And then I think we've touched on this before, people who do manage to hype something really well just with like a particular little bit of viral marketing, but then it comes out and it's not actually good and that doesn't go well. And I think that traditional publishers now are way more likely to latch onto that. So we're in this weird, like, little transitional phase where I feel like both of these publishing venues are kind of equal in different ways, and we don't have to worry about that trad route as much anymore, especially because you have to promote yourself just as much either
Yeah.
way.
Yeah, there's this, we could do a whole, and again, podcast about this one, but
We will.
yeah. The way traditional publishing is going, you're losing so much of what made that route even worth pursuing,
Yeah.
because they'll give me a beautiful cover. Okay, a lot of like self-published books have better covers than traditional published
Mm-hmm.
books anymore.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, oh, well, I don't have to, do my own marketing. Oh, yes, you do for both routes.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so there's a lot of comparisons to be made between the two, but I'm finding that it's definitely switched where, editors, agents aren't getting paid as much. So they're more so looking for like a viral debut person to just blow up real
Yeah.
quick, get a bunch of sales. The book cannot even be good, but they already have the sales, so they don't care. And then that debut
Mm-hmm.
person gets kicked to the sidelines as soon as they're not the hot, fresh face. And they
Yeah.
replace them with someone else and just waiting for someone to go viral long enough to do like a big series and things like that. But we're not having the big viral moments that like Twilight and Hunger Games and Divergent
No.
had back in the day, because they're not investing in
Mm-hmm.
their authors enough to create one of those moments. They're not marketing them enough. They're just looking for quick grabs because they realize that makes more money. So that's a problem all in and of
Mm-hmm.
itself. But then, self-publishing was so frowned upon for so long that
Yeah.
people felt like, oh, I'm going that self-publishing route, I have to be better than everybody else, so my craft has to be perfect, my editing has to be perfect. Like, the standard for self-publishing to be a good self-published author is now higher than it is for traditional publishing. And
It's so
so,
funny. Yeah.
yeah, the tables have kind of like turned in that way. And there's still self-published books that are garbage. There's still, traditional published books that are garbage. So there's still always going
Oh
to be
yeah.
books that are garbage, but the
Of course.
expectations are completely different. Like, if you're self-published, you have to have good storytelling and good craft. But if you're traditionally published, the
Mm-hmm.
expectation is you only have to be a good storyteller, and they'll just pay someone to fix your shit.
Yep.
But self-publishing, you still need to pay an editor. It just comes out of your pocket instead. But typically, from the get-go, you have to have something that is going to be cleaner than what you would go to an agent with. But the standards are still unreachable for so many people at the same
Mm-hmm.
time, and it's ridiculous.
Yeah. And I think if we are sort of, just because I mean my personal experience is more indie, right? Like, I have a small press now, but we're still considered like an independent press. I think it is important to touch on these elements of not just your, the videos you're taking and the author persona you're putting out there, but the technical elements of the cover, the description, the blurb, that sort of thing. Because I think that some people, they are focusing on, okay, well, my story's really good, I'm just gonna sort of come up with something to get it out there. And you, like, that physical book, um and I'm just grabbing a book for anyone who's watching the video version, like, it has to be good on the front cover, like the spine, the back cover, the interior. You want to get that right, or else it's not going to be polished the way you want it to. And it's like, those visuals mean so much. I mean, there's that classic saying of don't judge a book by a cover, but like, people judge a book by a cover. So
100%.
like, they absolutely do. So you need to think about that in your marketing. That is really important.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. There are several books that I've seen from like people on TikTok, even mutuals on TikTok, that I'm like, I love the idea of this book, and I was excited to read it until I saw the cover, and it's just like, in my opinion, ugly as hell. And so
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't want to spend money on that. Like, I would get it as an ebook for like $2. I would not put it on my
Hmm.
shelf. Versus there's some books that I'm like, oh my god, this is gorgeous. I don't even have time to read this for like 2 years from now, but I'm going to buy it right now because I want the hardcover
Hmm.
edition and because it's stunning. So
Yeah.
people do judge
We're
books by the
we're
cover.
we're in an aesthetic era with the online world being so visual. I mean, humans have always been visual creatures, obviously, but when you do look at the people who are going to heavily promote your book and fangirl over it, they want something pretty. in their hands. Like when I was talking about launching Stygian, one of the things that we talked about was like, okay, we want to get to a point where we can put out viral hardcovers. Like we're a small press, but it would just go so far to do like limited run, 50 copies, beautiful classic, like, faux leatherette with the embossing and everything. Because if you put that into someone's hands, that is going to be the first step to them being like, oh my God, I need to take a video of this. Look how beautiful it is. I can make content. I'm going to feel like it's something good to have behind me on my shelf to show off in my TBR, to say like, oh, spooky season's coming up. I say that because my stuff is spooky. Spooky season is coming up. Look at this list of things I'm going to read. And like, you want that sort of beautiful thing just that people want to devour and show off, whether they are writers or readers or just, saying, look at this cool book I got. Like, that goes so far.
Yeah, I mean, it makes the word of mouth so much more genuine, because it's like,
Yeah.
they're not just like, oh, look, I bought this book. That's the last you hear of it. It's, oh
Yeah.
my God, look at this book that I just did a photo shoot with because it's so gorgeous. And there's tons of times too, people will be like, oh, here's a gorgeous photo on Instagram, 1 star. But
Mm-hmm.
someone's still seen the
Yeah.
cover, didn't read the caption, and they're like, oh, that save, I'm gonna go get that later because it
Yeah.
looks cool. Or they'll even be like, oh, it's 1 star, let me read it. And it'll be like, this was too smutty, this was too spicy. And they'll be like, oh, that sounds perfect for me, though. It's a 1 star for you. But you already paid money for it regardless. And now, because of the cover and because of your review, I want it, even if it's a negative
Mm-hmm.
review. And then it just makes people more willing to buy, hold the cover, make it part of their wrap up, make it part of the recommendation list. Because,
Yeah.
like, if it's an ugly cover, someone might be just like, oh, yeah, and I like this book. Or they might not even read it because it's not, it doesn't feel good in your hands. It doesn't, it's not aesthetically pleasing. You might put it in the back of your bookshelf and forget you even have it if you do even purchase it. But the genuine, hype for a book, people are excited for it. They have a gorgeous cover. The blurb's good. Like, when you take time for all of the back matter, all of the professional, things that traditional publishing would normally do. Or if you're
Mm-hmm.
going the traditional publishing route and, you do get a beautiful cover, you do get all of the effort put in for you. And then self-publishing route, you do all the effort yourself. Indie publishing route, you have a good indie publisher on your side, like the Stygian collection. Shout out to you guys.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Then, you're having so much help to just create something super, super genuine where people want to talk about your book versus just forgetting that it ever existed, because it's professional, it's nice, it's beautiful, it's aesthetic. And there's just no reason why someone wouldn't shout it out on multiple occasions if they read it and they think it's beautiful. Like, they're not going to forget
Mm-hmm.
about that.
I think the important thing to keep in mind is to split it up between trad and indie. If you are trad publishing, make sure that publisher is going to put that care into your work, because there are some traditional publishers out there who are just going to spit things out as fast as they can, and they're not really going to put a lot of love into what you're doing. They're just going to take your property from you, and hopefully you get something out of it. So you want to do your research. And with indie, definitely look into your printing options. Look into, if you don't think you can write a good blurb, it's worth the money. Like, it's worth the money to have a good designer, to have a good editor, to have someone crafting like a compelling back cover description, and getting someone who can do that design. Like, I formatted the interior of my first book and also the Stygian collection, and there's definitely one thing lacking in that I was a little bit too close to the fold on the interior, because I did it myself. It was mostly okay. I was proud of most of it, but you get those little elements where you're like, oh, it could have been just a little bit better. So it is. But with the cover, I paid a proper designer to make that line up, and it looks great. So you want to put the money in because it is worth it. And that whole spend money to make money thing is true. And you want to, ideally, everything inside is just as good as well, like we said about having the craft as well as the storytelling, but you want the whole package, and your readers want the whole package.
Yes, always get a sample or an arc of your book.
Yes.
Regardless of what path you're doing, you want to see the physical thing before other people do. Because if there's something wrong, you can fix it before it goes to mass print. But if you don't,
Yeah.
you might have issues. But that is something too. Like, you can you can even try, to pick a publisher or or select a publisher if you go to auction, or to only submit when you're in the the submission phase in traditional publishing to publishers who have beautiful covers. But at the end of the day, like, I know of a specific author who went traditional, and she hates her book cover, and she was with a a fairly
Oh,
popular book cover, very popular publisher. And speaking to her, she like absolutely hates her book cover, and she was lucky that later on she got a different book cover for the paperback version of the book. But she tried her hardest just to not really even show the book, so she didn't want to use it in marketing materials, and it made everything just a little bit harder. So she like commissioned art and stuff instead to try and entice people with the commissioned art versus the
yeah,
cover art. So you can do everything right and still end up with a horrible cover if you go to the traditional route, or something that you just personally don't like. Like, I didn't think there was anything wrong with the cover until she pointed things out to me, and I was like, oh yeah, but no one else noticed that except
right.
for you. Um, but going that route, you can do everything quote unquote right and still end up with something you're unhappy with. But you can do things like commission
Hmm.
art, to promo your book with that instead of your cover. Just something beautiful, something that really showcases your book in some sort of way, whether it's the characters, whether it's the setting, art, snippets, like whatever you're loving about your book marketing materials, whether it's any of the back matter, the snippets, or if it's like a someone shouted out your book, other things like that. Anything that, like I said, this one of the first things I said, but anything that makes you happy, anything that feels genuine for you, lean into that. Because if you're like, oh,
Yeah,
I hate my cover, don't share the cover then, like, as much as you could. But
yeah.
hopefully you do love your cover, because that's like the worst fear of so many authors.
There is something to be said for that perfectionism that you have to battle, because like you said, this author, it wasn't immediately apparent to you that that there was anything wrong with the cover. So I think I'd made a note about, and we've brought up arc and like beta readers and stuff like that, alpha, beta. It's important to bring that feedback in on the process, even like with visual things, with marketing materials. So if you have a beta group of beta readers who are reading and they say, collectively, this is my favorite moment, and maybe it's one that you like, but it's not your absolute favorite, you can sort of hone in on that and go, oh, okay, maybe I do want to promote this. Do I like this better? And maybe this is better than I thought. And you can sort of fall in love with a different part of your book, because I mean, I should hope, even if not every part is your favorite part in your book, that you love it as a whole. And they might say to you like, no, this cover, like, this is it, this is the thing to go with, and they can sort of help to make you feel better about it. And even if it's not something that is immediately perfect in your mind, sometimes that outside source can be helpful. So be sure to get feedback. And I mean, in the end, if you hate it, you hate it, and your decision is going to be the best for your book, but you might be able to see something that you weren't seeing right away in your own work by having the feedback of others.
Yeah, definitely. I think betas, CPs, alpha readers, and just like whoever your followers are online, they're going to be such a big help, not just with you like writing the book, but with everything else. Like, there's one of the books I'm currently writing on. I was asking my critique partner Devin. I was like, oh, I came up with this cover, and she was like, oh yeah, I do like that. And then I came up with a different version of, not the cover, the title. And then I came
Mm,
up with a different version of the title, and I was like, oh, I don't know which one to go with now. And she went, oh, I did say I liked the first one originally, but I love the second one. And I was so
yeah.
torn, but I went with what she said. And I told other people about it, and they were like, oh yeah, no, second one, second one. And so that was like a big help that I would have been really torn about forever if I had just kept everything to myself. But because I went to somebody, it was easier to decide on. And
Hmm.
then again, having betas or alpha readers go through your book, and everyone's saying, oh, this line's fantastic, this line's fantastic, using that to be able to promo your book is a really good
Yeah.
idea. Or if followers online, you're sharing different snippets of your book, but they're all gravitating towards one post you made with a specific quote, you can blow that up even more. So it's all about that community aspect of it, which is why we said earlier, doing the community aspect first, connecting with people, finding friends is like the
Hmm.
number one thing you can do to improve yourself as a writer overall on a large scale.
Because they're going to be your focus group, if we're using marketing
Yeah.
terminology. That's your focus group. When you see people at like ad agencies having a group of people in there and watching, like, what do you think about this ad? Like, you get a focus group before you put it out into the world, and you've built that by starting your online journey before your book is out. Then you have the feedback, you have your beta readers, you have people giving early reviews and helping you along this process of making it come out better than ever. And I know that for me and some other people I've talked to, there's kind of that fear of, oh, but too many cooks, like too many people are going to get their fingers into my project and it's like my thing. And you have to let go of that to a certain extent. Like, sure, you don't want to send your book off to like 1,000 people and have all that feedback before it's published, but you want to build that little core group of people you trust, readers you trust, and they're going to help you, and they're going to help you on so many different steps, like the basic support, the feedback, the reviews. Like there are multiple ways that these people are going to come into play to help you market and promote your book.
Yeah, definitely. And I think too, like I genuinely did have that problem where I listened to too much advice, but you kind of have to stop being, a people pleaser. Like we
Yeah.
both
Yeah.
we both struggle
We
with.
we we know. We both know. Yeah.
Because like it is your book and you want to cater it to, your ideal audience, but like even in your ideal audience group, your focus group, there's going to be so many opinions. You can't possibly listen and cater
Yeah.
to everyone. But,
Yeah, you can't.
you have to remember you're the person with the, the final say and the final decision, because it is your story and it is your book. And, there's a bit of leeway in that with traditional publishing because you're not really the final say, but it is still
Mhm.
your story. It's still your IP. It's your idea that you crafted and created, and you should fight for that no matter what path you're going on.
Yeah.
Whether you have to tell like a critique partner, like, hey, I don't appreciate what you said about this part of the book. I don't think that's right. But thank
Mhm.
you for your opinion anyways. Or if you have to tell like, your traditional publisher, like, hey, I don't think this cover works for the book, or you have to tell an agent you don't like the direction that they want to go in, an editor, hey, I don't like what direction you're going in for the edits either.
Yeah.
Because remember, in a traditional publishing sense and in a self-publishing sense, you can tell your editor no. You don't
Yep.
want to always tell them no, but if you really want to stick to your guns with something, you can tell them no. And a lot of people don't think they
Mhm.
can. You can.
Yes. Also, look at contracts carefully, because if
Yes.
you do get ushered into traditional publishing, I think it's very easy to go, "Oh my god, I'm so excited!" and pop the champagne, whatever. Like, I got my book deal. Okay, but look at it, because you have to keep in mind that this is a business. It's a probably large business, and they're going to try to push you through their process exactly how they want to, and there are going to be things you don't want to lose. Like, there are going to be things where you go, okay, well, maybe you're someone who doesn't have a lot of opinions on the cover and you're going to be fine with them doing whatever. Like, don't push on that. But if let's say you have a character who's kind of a side character, and maybe they're not main enough to the point, like maybe this traditional publisher's editor might cut them out, and to you they are very important. You want to like make sure that in that contract you can have that final say on that particular thing. Like, keep in mind what is important to you if you get a traditional publishing contract, and find those little elements. They're obviously not going to let you have total control. That is part of this, but pick out your few most important things and push back on that, because you want to, it's still your baby, even if you're handing it off to someone else. Like, you want to try and keep some of those things.
Yeah, definitely. Um, I think too, even if you're going the self-publishing route, there's a lot more contracts you actually have to sign, I feel like, because you're
Yeah, that's
signing
true.
with, your cover, your editor, all these other things. So read
Mm-hmm.
over
Mm-hmm.
any contract, no matter what path you're going on, very carefully. Like, I know I have
Yeah.
a critique partner who was going the self-publishing route, and she hadn't, I don't think she had read the contract correctly for her cover design.
Mm.
And so before she even got to share the cover herself, the cover artist shared it. Like months
Okay.
before,
Yeah.
because she
Yeah.
didn't understand that the book, like they were going to use it as part of their portfolio because she hadn't read everything correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Had to
Mm-hmm.
work with them for several weeks to have them take it down. But a lot of people had already seen it, so it kind of like killed the cover reveal for her in a lot of ways. So no matter what you
Yeah.
want,
I
read the stuff.
That was one of my things, because with the Stygian collection, for anyone who's seen it, like there is a focus on that art, and So in the contract, even though I trusted our artist, like she's a friend of a friend, I was like, this is all good. I just wanted to make sure everything was super clear that like, okay, we want you to show like works in progress, but it has to be very, you know, close cropped. So people can't tell what's actually going on here. Like we want you to be able to say, oh, I'm working on this really cool thing and hype it a little bit, but we don't want any full reveal in any way. And when I would send out like concept sketches to the authors because we wanted to include them on the process, like here, look what we're working on, this is how it's going to go, it was always very clear, like you do not share this.
Yeah.
They're like, when the cover reveal comes out, then you will get a very clear email saying now is the time. Before then, it is with us, and that is it. And we were really lucky to not have any leaks because it was very exciting, and we would have responses from the authors being like, oh my god, I love how it's turning out, and these cover, like the concept and the little drawings and everything. So I could get that there was that energy to want to share it, and no one did. I was like, okay, good. It's because we were just so clear about it. Yeah, you have to be.
Yeah,
So
that's
you
really
you
good.
kind of want to know your marketing plan in advance too. Like even when you're just starting, like someone's just starting to draw the cover, you have to know that you're going to have a cover reveal eventually.
Yeah, marketing plan is so important too. I know I'm creating my first actual real marketing plan
Mm-hmm.
for my CEO's book that I'm helping with this year, and so it's my first
Mm-hmm.
experience with it, but it's so necessary because it literally gives you a timeline of what you're doing, why you're doing it, exactly how you're going to do it. And all those important things, because otherwise you just kind of get lost in the sauce. Like it's too
Yeah.
much to do if you're doing it all yourself, and no matter what path you're going with, self or traditional or indie or anything in between, you're going to have to do your own marketing. Like I cannot stress that enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's important as we so we're about an hour in now. I think we should, as we sort of head to the end of this podcast, we should talk about the actual launch, when you're going to put the book out, and also the launch author events, and also the element of paid versus free advertising. I think those are three important points to touch on. Um, so starting with the launch, I know a lot of people wonder like, when should my book come out? And I remember when I was looking that up, it was kind of interesting to see that. So most books come out between January and April, and traditionally on a Tuesday. So for me, I'm a bit of a contrarian, so I would be like, well, I don't want to put it out on a Tuesday then. So you can go however you want. And I think I actually did wind up putting my first one out on a Tuesday because I was like, contrary or tradition, I like both of these things. I don't know. And it's hard. Like you're gonna have to sort of decide and research based on your genre about that like specific time to put it out. But it's good to have something out before particular like gift giving seasons, like the gift giving season. You don't want to launch it like immediately for it. You want it to be out a little bit before, so that it already has, it's got a little bit of momentum going, and that when it hits its prime period, it's in its second wave. That's what I have found. So with Stygian, it's a spooky book once again. So we put it out in July, which is like, oh, well, why didn't you put it out in October? Well, because we wanted it to pick up a bit of momentum and have reviews so that we would have content to share once it hit its prime season of October. So I think that's something important to keep in mind, because it can be exciting to be like, oh, I'm going to put this out in October because I wrote a horror novel or something like that. Or I'm going to put this thing out like right in July because it's like a pretty summery romance. Put it out before.
Yeah, I think too, like a lot of times traditionally I've seen people do, oh, if it's a spooky book, put it out in September so that you have
Mm-hmm.
that little bit of time. So I know like The Odds and The Glass Witch, I think by Lindsay Puckett, both came out in September. I think The Odds is coming
Yeah.
out shortly from the time that
Mm-hmm.
we're filming this. And then even like the sequel to, it's a movie. Wow, I'm a fake witch. I don't remember. Hocus Pocus, fuck. Hocus Pocus
Oh,
2.
yes,
It
yes,
came out,
yes.
I think, last September, so it came out a little bit early as well.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
and it's funny because we're planning to release this podcast in October, so we're contradicting our own advice here,
I
but doing
I
it a little bit
I
early.
think that it's a little bit. I think it's a little bit different. We're
Yeah,
gonna have our trailer out,
yeah,
um, and I think like that is kind of a good point, because it's like I find with content, pure content like YouTube videos, educational stuff, like you want it to be right in the thick of it because
Yeah.
people are excited. It's like, okay, I'm ready to dive in and I want to do this right now. But with books, you do really want to build up things like reviews. So now that I've had, like, it'll be 3 months building up. Some people have read this. They're going to be telling their friends now. So those 3 months give people time to have read the collection and, tell people. You get word of mouth in that time. So they might go, oh yeah, I remember I heard about this, but I haven't got it yet. So then October hits and you put your next ad out with the reviews that you've built up in those 3 months. And then they're reminded, oh yeah, my friend told me about that book. I am going to buy it now. So it's different with that sort of thing, because you need to do things like build word of mouth. Whereas with your podcast or your like educational YouTube video, you want to put that out there because that in itself is going to be its promo. You need that video, and you're going to, like, do Facebook ads or whatever, just post it to be like, here's the thing, look at the thing now. And there's also that urgency of putting it out at the right time, and having that window where the algorithm is going to latch onto it. So there's that slight difference there, I think.
Yeah, I feel like it's different too between like self and traditional publishing. 'Cause for traditional, they'll have arcs come out more in like July
Yeah.
if they're doing, for example,
Yeah.
something like a September or October release at Spooky. And so, like Lindsay's books, they already have those arc reviews. She already has that content to be able to share
Yeah.
it. So she's able to release it closer to the actual, height of Spooky season versus you guys had
True.
more indie route. So you guys needed the 3 months because you guys didn't exactly have the ability to do arcs and things like that.
But yeah, I guess just saying that I do come from in indie world quite a bit. So if you are going trad, it is going to be like there's going to be these slight differences with everything. But like you said about movies, like I with Haunted Montreal, we've been getting a lot of these, like screening passes for scary movies as they come up. And I thought it wouldn't be till the October, but we started getting them in August. So we were going to like Haunted Mansion, Last Voyage of the Demeter. So there is something to be said for those particular types of media where you want that build up and then it really hits and you get a second wave.
Yeah, I don't think there's any necessarily wrong way. It just depends on the path you want to take and the path, obviously, you're taking between
Yes.
traditional and self-publishing. That'll kind of
Yeah.
lend, a bit of an idea for which path you're going for. But, either way, spooky releases are fun if it's for
Hmm.
you.
Yeah. I I think we can agree with that.
Yeah.
And and also, so there's the consideration when you do launch of, like, virtual book tours, physical book tours, that kind of thing. And this is a big topic in itself that I think would be fun to explore as a whole, just like event planning, that element. And I talked to Bree, one of the Stygian authors again, who did this little like launch in a store that was like a metaphysical shop with crystals and stuff, and it wasn't even
Mm.
a bookstore. And I thought that was so nice to see. And when it comes to your launch, like, you can really think outside of the box. There's so many options. You don't just have to, like, you can reach out to your local bookstore, or you can do a Zoom launch or anything. But you can get really creative with it. So if you have like local businesses that, even if they have nothing to do with books, that might just be the right energy to put your book out and bring something new to them. So it's fun to brainstorm on those concepts too. And I think you should always do your cover reveal, and you should always have fun with your launch.
Yeah, definitely. I think those are two great areas where you can get a lot of content and a lot of hype. And it's
Yeah.
like natural content is some of the, big things right now is like, oh, let me go and share my cover because, I have to release the cover. That's natural progression of events up to a book release. Oh, it's the book launch.
Hmm.
Let me share all these photos and all these cool things we did for the book launch. Or, oh, it's actually going to be live streamed. So jump on the live stream, be
Yeah.
part of the launch yourself without having to actually travel for it. There's all these natural progression of things. Sharing the process along the way of publishing your book on top of writing it is the natural progression between, oh, I have this idea, let me share it with people. Let me, after you've already built your community, all the way over to this hero's journey of you publishing your book, the whole process of it, all of
Hmm.
those natural steps are all content, and content is, in a way, very natural advertising for your book. It's all an opportunity for the right person to find it.
Yeah, our last launch that we did online as well, but because our authors are international, you have, you know, in Canada, US, like Netherlands, Japan, so all of us could not get together in one place unless it was online. So we did that, and then for the local authors, we actually rented a combined photo studio and event space. So there was the good lighting for photos and video, which we wanted. There were two rooms, and there was one sort of more private room and then a more like wide open room. We got a cake with the book cover on it, and it was great because we could have the cover artist there, and she got to see it. It was kind of a surprise for her too. We
Oh,
had a TV in there where we played videos of the authors who were in the book, so they were sort of on there even if they couldn't be there in person. And so we had the one area with like food and cake and champagne, and we did readings in there. And then we had this little side room where we took the chance to do mini interviews. And we knew that people didn't want to step away from the party for too long because they were having fun. But it was like, let's do 5 minutes where we just ask you like three questions, bam, bam, bam. And then you get that like mini bit of content. So you want to think on your feet for these things. Like, for lack of a better term, to just, you know, milk it for all it's worth. Like, I'm gonna have this platform, this place. We're gonna be in this room with all these people together. Like, what can I do with this? So just everything that is to do with your book, just think, how much can I do with it, and how much can I put out there, and in what way do I want to have fun with this?
Yeah, I think if you genuinely love your book and you're proud of what you've created too, it's really easy to do those things with marketing because you'll genuinely and
Yes.
organically think of these ideas and you'll want to share
Yes.
things. So if you're really proud of everything you've done, if you're really happy with your cover, with your blurb, with your marketing, like everything, it's very easy to want to share it with people. But if you're just trying to push out book after book after book, not caring, then it becomes kind of a drag to do
Mhm.
marketing because you're like, I'm already on to my fifth project after this one. Like I'm not I'm
Exactly.
not mentally here anymore.
You want to give each product project like its space. It's space to you know, sort of fulfill itself, and you want to love it and bask in that for a minute before running on to the next thing. And obviously, as a creator, you do run on to the next thing all the time, but just give each project its, you know, its little bubble to be the special thing.
Yeah, I definitely think that's a problem no matter which way you're going with publishing, because in the self-publishing world, it's very much like quantity. Like you have to, you know, mass publish a lot of things way quicker than the traditional space goes in a lot of ways. So you don't get to
Hmm.
kind of have your moment to like bask in the thing. You're already thinking about the next book. You're already like midway through it or editing it or you know, whichever. And then traditional publishing
Yeah.
is the same thing as if you have like a book deal for multiple other projects, you're already trying to bring something to your editor or to your agent, and by the time publishing gets around to it, you might be like 3 books, 4 books deep
Hmm.
into a different project because it takes like 2 years. And maybe you wrote the book 5 years ago, but you didn't get an agent for 2 years. And now it's, you know,
Yeah.
5 years since you wrote the book. A lot of authors I hear too who go the traditional route, they don't even remember all of the book and they have to read their own book back by the time they actually go into
Yeah.
launch or go on tour for the book because they don't remember what happened because it's been so long since they actually were in the
Hmm.
trenches writing it. Um, so, but you know, you have to go back, get into the shoes of the person you were when you wrote the book and, you know, appreciate it for what it is. You might be a better writer now and go, oh, I wouldn't have written this like, you know, how I did 5 years ago. But you know, 5 years ago, that was the best that you could do, and you were really proud of it. So stepping back into those shoes,
Hmm.
being like, okay, now it's time to market this book that I poured a lot of love and effort into, even though I'm on to something else that I already love and I'm putting different effort into. Being able to step back and to step away and then appreciate what you've created, I think is so important, and not enough people, I think, talk about that at all.
Yeah, which actually brings us back around to sort of what we were talking about at the beginning of having those memories through, you know, YouTube, or even, which we didn't say, but even if you want to keep like a personal little video journal,
Oh
something
yeah.
like that, if you aren't putting it out there publicly, it will help you go back and go like, so if you look at it and go, oh, I don't really like this now, you can go back and go, well, let's just hear what I thought when I was going through the process of writing this, and where I was at. And you're going to empathize with that old version of yourself more and go, oh yeah, okay, I remember when this happened and I felt really good about writing this paragraph. And you can go back and look at the paragraph and read it and go, yeah, that's, that's not so bad. And it's going to help you to promote your stuff if you've been distanced from it for a while.
Yeah, I definitely think so. And this is why people have journals and diaries and all these other things. It's just with thanks to technology and the internet, we can share that, intimate, elements of our lives to a larger audience who can appreciate it on a grander scale. And they might see themselves in, your journey, or it might motivate them, or all these other things. Or you can keep it just for yourself. You can have I don't know. I don't know what that noise was. Was that on your end?
There was a siren that just, a siren just went by.
It sounded like a wolf howling. I was like, is there a fucking werewolf where you are?
It is like a very, very haunted city. And we have one about werewolf legends. No, the sirens in Montreal sound different from sirens anywhere else. And they are very weird and they sound very haunting.
Got it. I was so scared. I was like, you're gonna get bit right now.
The first time I heard them, seriously, I was lying there in bed and I was like, what the hell is that? No, it's a siren.
Got it. Okay. Understood. Yeah. I was frightened. I relate.
Yeah. You were saying, so you could
keep a journal or a diary or a vlog. Cheers.
Yeah. Cheers. So wrapping it up, because I mentioned it, we should just touch on the whole, free and paid advertising, because I think that comes in like as an indie creator primarily, because if you're trad publishing, they're going to handle that. But if you're going indie, I think there is a lot to consider with what kind of money you want to put into advertising and what is worth it and what isn't. And we've said stuff that's about, no one size fits all. And I would say that here. But my personal advice to start would be look at your platforms. What are your strong platforms? And always look at your demographics. And like different platforms offer different things, right? So like your Facebook, for example, might have a slightly older demographic who might not respond to ads, and your Instagram might have a 20-something demographic who would respond to ads. So you're going to sort of want to focus in there. You want to look at not just what your biggest platform is, but also where are your responsive people? Like, where's your interaction? Where's your sort of younger group? Because just generally younger people tend to respond to online ads a little bit more, I find. So you really want to delve into your analytics and demographics. And I know for some people, so for me, I love looking at the numbers and all the specifics. I think it's really fun. I love my spreadsheets and stuff like that. So I enjoy getting into it. But if you're someone who doesn't want to look at all that data, like just do it. Because if you do decide that you want to dabble in, boosting posts and stuff like that, you need the analytics to know the right place to put that money, because you don't want to waste it.
Yeah, and I definitely think two of the most basic things, but are some of the two most important things with marketing, is going to be your cover and your editing. So, the majority of your budget, your cover, 100%, and editing.
Yes.
Because you can't share, like, it's going to be embarrassing as hell if you share a snippet that you're really proud of, and then there's a major typo or grammar error in your work. Yeah. And then it makes people not want to share your work if you're going, the self-publishing route, because they're like, oh, I like this story, but I can't recommend it to people because it's not, like, edited well.
It's not polished.
Yeah. And then after that, I would say structure. But outside of those things, there's plenty of things you can do for free. I know that's a problem a lot of people have with wanting to go the self-publishing route, is that they can't afford it, which, believe me, I understand. That's why I have not gone that route thus far in my life, because I want to do it right. And for that, there's a certain amount of, funds you want to put into it, at least for a lot of the things that I want to do. But like Canva Premium, Canva is amazing. If you can get into that, you can literally build websites. You can build, you can figure out your logo on there. You can make a brand kit so you can keep all your things consistent. You can bulk create a lot of like graphics and video prompts and things like that. You can do videos on there too. Canva Premium is like the best shit. So
Yeah.
I highly recommend
And
that.
and it has all of that royalty free stuff, like I said
Yep.
about the film editing software. I have Canva has that same sort of thing. The only thing I will note, because I ran into this recently, if you are using Canva for video clips and sound effects and music, YouTube will put through a claim.
Oh,
So if you, even though it's royalty free, so pro tip, if your YouTube email is not associated with your Canva email, they will try to come after you for copyright, and you will have to like send them proof of your account so that they whitelist you. They're very nice about it. Like, I honestly still haven't sent them proof, and they just said we'll release it anyway. And I was like, yeah, I'll get back to you. And then I got busy, and they haven't like come after me in any way. But you'll be looking through and you'll think you've done everything completely like royalty free, and you'll see a claim and you'll be like, wait, what?
yeah.
And if you see that and you've been working with Canva for your sound and stuff, like, that's all it is. It's likely that your email account is just not associated, so you just need to like get in touch with them and sort it out.
I did not know that. So thank you. You
Yeah.
probably just saved
You're
me.
welcome. Yeah. It was terrifying when I first saw that. I was like, what's happening? But yeah, they just want proof that you are actually like paying for that premium service to have access to those clips.
Yeah, the only thing I've seen similar to that was with Epidemic Sound, which I got for my channel, but it
Oh
sucks
yeah.
because I can only use
Yeah.
it for my channel.
That's that's the same people. It's the same people
Yeah.
that I heard from, and they had some stuff on Canva that I used. So
Oh,
that was
okay.
it.
Understand.
Yeah.
Understand.
But yeah, like, speaking on budget as a whole, definitely, like, I know I just sort of ran into the ad thing, but yeah, like, edit, number one. If you only have the budget for one thing, make it editing.
Yeah.
Every time, 100%. And then do everything else, free. There's tons of free options. The paid boosts, Facebook ads, Google ads, YouTube promo, that kind of thing, those can come later. But if you are getting into those, you can try them out for very little. Like, I will put $50 a month into like boosting something on Facebook, and it does a lot. Like, it goes a long way. So I find that that's good. Like the Facebook, Instagram sort of combined boosts, I like those a lot as someone who doesn't have a lot of budget for this. But also, like, I lucked out because my mom is an editor. And so she edited my first book, and she edited Stygian. So I was very lucky in that area. And I had I had the room to move around with other things. But if you do not, edit, 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 edit.
Okay, so go to Holly's mom to edit my book.
Yeah.
Check.
I mean, honestly, I actually just made a website for her. It's
Nice.
PamelaCat.com.
Shout her out.
PamelaKat.com. Shout her
Oh,
out,
yeah.
because she is an amazing editor. And I like to say to people that, yes, she's my mom, but she was also like the head of the Editors Society in Manitoba. So she is a legitimate, very good editor. And she tells me when I'm making mistakes, and sends me lots of scolding messages. So she doesn't give me an easy ride.
I'm like,
But highly recommend, because she is really nice to work with. She's really sweet, and her rates are really good. She and I have worked on her rates together to ensure that they are fair.
sorry, can you tell me what the website is again?
Oh, Pamela, PamelaKat.com.
Okay.
Yeah.
Most unfortunately, there is also a porn star with that name. So I
Oh no!
I got results from Spank Bang.
Oh no! So we're gonna be adding it. We wanted to just like get a landing page, especially because I put her site in the in the fine print of Stygian collection, and I was like, well, Mom, you need something out there. People are gonna look at your site. You don't want it to be nothing. So we're gonna be adding more. She's gonna have a blog. She has more books that she's worked on that we're gonna put up there and stuff like that. So it's a starter site right now with that basic contact. Yeah.
I wonder, the editor that I'm considering for my stuff is one of my bridesmaids, actually. And so I'm wondering if I can build her a site and she'll give me a discount. Which
my mom does definitely have me under her thumb now. Like, if she asks anything, since she does the editing for free, I have to do it.
Yeah, that's actually a really good, tip for anybody out there who wants to go the self-publishing route, but, struggling to afford stuff, is pulling together your
Hmm.
community and trading, services and skills that you have with other people
Yeah,
is really useful. So like, you know,
very true.
I'm doing this a lot with my wedding actually. So what my videographer, my photographer, potentially my florist, and basically and my DJ are all people and friends that I know. So old
Hmm.
coworkers and other things like that who are giving me great discounts. So like my videographer is doing a full day of everything, and I just have to pay for his travel, his accommodations. And then I got a 50% off discount for the videographer, and then DJ is going to do it for free, and Florals is going
Hmm.
to get a bit of discount on it too. So applying what I'm learning from wedding planning to marketing, you can do similar stuff
Hmm.
if you have a skill like I actually make covers, but I don't do editing. Maybe you can trade with an editor who's also writing a book, and you'll do their cover for them doing your editing, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that's something that's kind of good to wrap up on since we've been going back and forth about community and building community. I think a lot of authors were inclined to be solitary and it can be hard to network, but in the end, community is going to help you immensely, whether it is reviews or support or the trading of services. Like you'll meet people who are editors who have things that are going to help you and you can help them as well. And creative communities and creative people, I think, function at their best when they have that support and when they are not islands.
100%. Couldn't agree more. I think that's a great spot to end this episode on.
Yeah, I think we've said a lot on marketing and a lot of actionable things. And for anyone watching, if you have other questions, feel free to ask us.
Yes, anything at all, you guys, we can make into another podcast episode because obviously we can just keep going back and forth like nobody's
Oh yeah, we'll
business.
go on forever,
Yeah,
forever.
we could.
We could absolutely. Maybe one day we'll do like a marathon charity podcast or something.
Oh, that does sound
See what we do.
fun.
Yeah, yeah, could
Okay,
be really fun.
ideas, ideas. Just bug out a whole 24 hours.
Hmm.
Go as long as we can.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, until then, like leave us comments, let us know what you think, let us know if you agree or disagree or have questions. We want to hear it all. Yeah, thank you so much and have a great day or night wherever you are.
Yep. See you guys later. Bye.